Hi, my name is Nick Woods and I'm the CIO for Manchester Airport Group. And today I'm going to talk to you about critical success factors for becoming an intelligence-led organisation. So let's get to it. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about some of the strategic factors really that you can actually use to make sure that you are setting up the program and setting up your organisation for success. And right at the top of the tree, the first and most important thing that you've got to get set and get right is the vision. A clear vision, clear strategy and clear goals around what you are trying to achieve and where we're trying to go. And that for me needs to come absolutely from the top. You know, you need that executive sponsorship and buy-in from the top down that really we're going to drive this forwards, because fundamentally this is about a cultural change for an organisation and about getting it to where it needs to be. You'll probably hear me say culture a few times as we go through this. Moving on from that top level, there's then three further strategic success factors that you need to think about. The first is having proper buy-in from the entire executive team, and that's ownership from the entire executive team. IT alone can't drive the transformation that you need to. Fundamentally, to be successful in this space, it's about driving the transformation of people, process and technology, all driven by data, to actually enable us to fundamentally change the way the business approaches decision making and change. And a tell approach from IT can't do that. You need to have the whole exec team really owning and driving that digital transformation as you go forwards. Secondly, it's about taking a customer or a user-led approach to what you are looking to do. That's supposed to be a little shopping bag there. But having the voice of the customer resonating in everything that you are doing is really, really critical. Because by taking that design approach and thinking and putting yourself in the perspective of the user group or in the perspective of the customer, will make sure that the changes that you're making and the way that you design your processes and the information, the metrics that you're looking to get out of it, will be properly focused really on the things that are going to drive the business forwards, as opposed to an IT or even a departmental view of the world. So repositioning and thinking from the user perspective is essential. Moving on from that is creating an agile organisation and culture mindset for the entire organisation, and that's why, you know, bringing back down from that cultural change from the top, often adopting these approaches will mean that you have to think slightly differently, potentially in terms of how you are funding initiatives, prioritising initiatives, and driving forwards change from a business perspective, to actually move to a place where, you know, you are able to iterate quickly to be able to deliver, that you're able to test and learn as you go through. The acceptance from a culture that actually it's okay to fail on things, but if you're doing that, you're setting up an environment where it's okay to say this isn't the right way to do things and fail fast, so that you can move on and pivot and learn what you need to do next. Okay, so for me then, vision, executive buy-in and ownership, a user or customer-led approach to the work that you're doing, and then really setting up the organisation for an agile approach and mindset are the strategic success factors for becoming intelligence-led. Once you've got those in place, you can then start thinking about the success factors that you need from an execution perspective. And for me, these are, first and foremost, a real clear view of your architecture. And that's coming at it from both a business, enterprise wide and systems architecture. But the key point there really being around, actually, do you understand what you're building, and do you understand how the various different parts fit into that architecture? And along with that, the consequences of decisions that you're going to make. So which of those fundamental building blocks that actually, once you've taken those decisions, the other things are going to fit around. And if you get those things wrong, actually it becomes harder for you to pivot and to remove them. So thinking about that architecture and having a long-term architecture plan in place, as I said, covering both the business and the systems architecture, is really essential as you go forwards. So moving on from the architecture view, the next thing to think about is investment planning and procurement planning. Making sure that actually investment and procurement decisions that you make are anchored back in the architecture, anchored back in the plan and what you are looking to deliver, but does everything tie back to the vision, to the goals, to the objectives that you've set? Often with these kind of programs, individual initiatives and individual investments won't in themselves deliver benefits. Actually, as you deliver a series of elements, after each other, the sum of the parts really does add up and actually start delivering the value. And with thinking about that investment, it's having a central view of the change. So you've got a central view of the plan, a central view of measuring the benefits and the outcomes for that, so that the as I said in the earlier point, really, those initiatives, as you go through them and as you deliver them, you can start actually getting a much better view of how they all come together to deliver the ultimate strategy, the ultimate goal. Because individually spinning these things up across the organisation in siloed fashion, it puts at risk the architecture and the decisions that you're making, because actually you can't necessarily see how these things are coming together. But secondly, making sure that you've really got a view of, right, this particular element fits in to this part of the architecture, is delivering these outcomes and these benefits, makes it much easier for you to see and track where you're going and make sure that you get into a common endpoint. Once you've got those things in place, thinking very carefully about the comm strategy and actually being able to take the organisation and the business with you on the journey. So thinking about how you're going to do comms, how you're going to communicate this stuff out as you go along, how you're going to actually tie it back to the vision, to what it means for each of the individual departments or areas, from the executive ownership, executive sponsorship, thinking about how it fits in, the outcomes that we're going to get and where we are on the journey to tie it all together, is essential for bringing the organisation with you. And again, it's a key part of how you drive that cultural change right the way through what we're trying to do. And then finally, and tying back into that, is thinking about how do you form cross-functional teams across the organisation that can set you up for success. An individual IT team that's taken some requirements and are trying to build an outcome in a silo, that they go back to the business at user acceptance testing to actually come and say, is this the outcome we were looking for? Is this what you wanted? All too often projects fail at that point. And actually looking at a different way of doing things to bring the operational teams, the data teams, the technology and software engineering teams together in a product delivery mindset that's really centered on delivering the outcomes, thinking about an agile approach, and that's really close to that customer user-led kind of journey thinking, really does set you up for success. So for me, these then become the execution sides of the success factors. And that's the journey.